before I do that, because of the events of this week and last week, I just wanted to make sure that there's like a nuance kind of understanding that I want to make sure that I share with everybody. This is my understanding of this nuanced understanding. Okay? If I asked everybody, do you know what the 4 dictums are? Would you know what I'm talking about? I've definitely mentioned them to you before. I've read them and all that. Do you remember what the 4 dictums or 4 maxims? 4 statements that the Daishonin would say all the time on a consolidated basis almost. There's 5 mentions of the first one in Volume 1, 23, and Volume 2. And then a specific representation of that in the OTT. It would be in the dictionary under 4 dictums. Okay, can I read that to you? Okay, if you're not familiar with it. I mean, the key is that I wanted you to understand, make sure you know what the 4 dictums are. They're in a bunch of different goshos. They're in the Selection of Time. They're Letter of Petition for Yorimoto. Like I said, there's 5 different mentions in Volume 1 and 23 mentions in Volume 2. And then this OTT thing. Okay, so the 4 dictums, also 4 maxims. 4 statements in which Nichiren denounced the 4 most influential Buddhist schools of his time in Japan. The Pure Land Jodo school, also known as the Nimbutsu school, the Zen school, the True Word Shingon school, and the Precepts Risu school. Based on his understanding of the supremacy of the Lotus Sutra and his perception of the slander of those schools against the Sutra, he repudiated their doctrines and declared as follows: Nimbutsu leads to the hell of incessant suffering. Zen is the invention of the heavenly devil. True word will ruin the nation, and precepts is a traitor to the nation. Now, do you remember now what I'm talking about? Okay. Have any of you ever given any thought to those 4 things? Why those things? Why he keeps repeating that? And is there a differentiation between the 4? He says bad things about all 4, but note what he says. Okay? He says, number 1, Nimbutsu leads to the hell of incessant suffering. Right? Zen is the invention of the heavenly devil. True word will ruin the nation. Precepts is a traitor to the nation. There's only one that leads to the hell of incessant suffering. Do you understand that? He's saying, and again, what he's qualifying there is to some degree, again, you know, what's the problem with Nimbutsu as a teaching according to Nichiren? Anybody know? Amida Buddha is being praised and being revered as the object of devotion. Okay, and Amida is not even of this world. He's from some Buddha land, I guess in the east or the west, I can't remember which direction, but he's not Shakyamuni. He's not from this Sahe world. So he's saying it's a slander that the teacher that brings forth the true teaching into this world, Shakyamuni, is not revered, and instead Amida is revered. That's why he qualifies this. When you go then to, so Nimbutsu leads to the hell of incessant suffering. Zen, he doesn't say leads, he says that one is the invention of the heavenly devil. Why? Because Zen is based on transmission outside of the sutras, right? Bodhidharma made up a bunch of stuff that's mental, you know what I always say. But the point is that Zen is the invention of the heavenly devil. In other words, it's misleading. All right? It misleads from the true teacher. The teacher is still supposedly Shakyamuni, even though Bodhidharma is the one doing the teaching. Do you understand? In Zen. All right, he says, true word will ruin the nation. Why is true word going to ruin the nation? Because true word, with all of its ritualization, understand, Nimbutsu is something that can be done all the time, just like Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, and people can just chant Nimbutsu, right? And they don't have to do anything else. They don't have to study. They don't have to do anything. Honen, specifically, and also, don't forget, What is one of the key precepts of Nimbutsu at this time? Honen has already appeared 300 or 400 years earlier in Japan. Okay? He's already said, discard, ignore, abandon the Lotus Sutra. That is part of the Nimbutsu chosen above all teaching that Honen has promoted that everybody's following. He's the one saying that, not even 1 out of 1,000 people can attain Buddhahood through the teaching of the Lotus Sutra. So it's an overt rejection. Do you understand? Zen is a distortion. All right? Then he goes into true word will ruin the nation. Why true word will ruin the nation? True word is the sect that has the most gobbledygook, special, secret shit going on.
That's
right?
your life.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, but I didn't know it would
Okay.
be.
So the point being that, again, true word is because of the level of gobbledygook and mysticism and all these mandalas and hand signs and secret expressions. It was given a lot of sway as being, powerful because it had all of this secret secret teaching in it. Okay? And that's really where the rulers were putting the emphasis for protect the nation. They were going to the true word priests and having them pray. And that's what the Daishonin was continually saying. If you have them pray for you, you're definitely going to lose. Right? So that's what he says about then true word. And then precepts is a traitor to the nation. Don't forget Ryokan was a precepts priest. Right? And so how is precepts a traitor to the nation? He's discussing a differentiation of everybody based on behavior rather than a teaching that unites everyone. Precepts is something that is very much used to separate people. It's a dogmatic kind of an understanding based on how pure you are versus other people. Do you understand? So the point is that the 4 dictums or the 4 maxims are 4 basic understandings of the other schools of Buddhism that are significant enough to take note of. They've already influenced other people to a great degree. I mean, we go down, I was just talking about the thousands of Zen members in those purple sweatshirts that come out. I mean, I can't even believe how many people there are to one group, okay? Then I already found out that if you don't, this last week, pretty much if you don't do something specific, you're going to get an Nimbutsu in your deceased ceremony, whether you like it or not. It's almost like you can't avoid it.
Yep.
It suddenly gave me a new perspective on why there's a Soka Gakkai process for funerary services, because in the absence of that, you would be thrown upon you'd be at the mercy of the prevailing societal influences and norms. You would not be able to keep from essentially slandering the law. Because if you don't refute all 4 of these schools, as the Daishonin has said to, and why he has said to, okay, you are guilty of complicity of slander. Do you understand? So, now, a lot of people then would think, yeah, but that isn't that kind of like, not mind your own business. I mean, why are you saying that, we got to refute these people? So, there's a concept in Buddhism called preaching without being asked. Are you familiar with this? Okay, this is basically exactly what Shakyamuni did with the Lotus Sutra, right? Nobody had the wisdom to perceive the truth of the Buddha nature. So no one could ask the question, okay? So there are times when preaching must occur without being asked, all right? And you're not being a butt wipe or being somebody that's not cool or being too religious in that process. When you run up against the teachings of those 4 and you see people that are leaning on the teachings of those 4, those are not non-Buddhist teachings. Those are slanderous Buddhist teachings. Okay? They will not lead to the effect that the people that are practicing them are hoping and desiring them to. That's why Nichiren opposed them so overtly. Because there is no instance in the latter day of the law where they represent any function of salvation. Do you understand? Right? Okay, so getting into then the orally transmitted teachings, where you can find all this stuff as far as, speaking out. I'm going to start with, there's 7 points in the introduction chapter from the OTT. I'm going to read 5, 6, and 7. All right? Here we go. This is on page 16 of the orally transmitted teaching. Let me just read through it. Point 5, the words, the light reaching downward as far as the Avicii hell. Does everybody remember that from the sutra? A tuft of light came from in between Shakyamuni's eyebrows, right? And reached all the way down to the Avicii hell. Okay, what was the significance of that? We know from having already read this, right? It's to reach even the people that are in a state of hell with the light of the law. Okay, so he says, the record of the orally transmitted teaching says this passage shows that beings in all of the 10 worlds can attain Buddhahood. The passage makes clear that Devadatta has attained Buddhahood. In the passage following the Treasure Tower chapter, the matter of Devadatta's attaining Buddhahood is further explained in the so-called 2 admonitions, which we're going to get into in very shortly here in the lecture on the opening of the eyes. But at the time represented by the present passage in chapter 1, Devadatta has already attained Buddhahood. Okay, do you understand that? All right. The word reaching refers to the ray of light emitted by the Buddha from the tuft of white hair between his eyebrows. The ray of light from the white hair is Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. The passage immediately following that says that the ray of light reached upward into the Akatanshita heaven, represents the truth of non-substantiality. That is to say, it reached downward as far as the Avicii hell, represents the truth of temporary existence. And the light from the tuft of white hair represents the middle way. From this, it is clear that beings in the 10 worlds can all attain Buddhahood at the same time. In the Devadatta chapter, we are told that Devadatta will be adorned with the title Heavenly King Buddha. Now, do you understand what he says when he says, from this it is clear that beings in the 10 worlds can all attain Buddhahood at the same time? In fact, they all did. When did all beings of the 10 worlds attain Buddhahood? The Buddha nature was made clear to be a part of their life by virtue of the original Buddha attaining Buddhahood. That's when everybody else attained Buddhahood. Do you understand? Mm-hmm. All right, so if we consider the time of the environment of Buddhahood from the 2 aspects of environment and life, then we see that in the passage of reaching downward as far as the Avicii hell, the attainment of Buddhahood is being explained in terms of the environment, that is hell. And in the Devadatta chapter, when we are told that Devadatta will be called Heavenly King, thus come one, the attainment of Buddhahood is being explained in terms of the life of the individual. But in the case of both environment and life, the attainment of Buddhahood is accomplished through the wonderful law, only through Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. Now, when Nichiren and his followers perform ceremonies for the deceased, reciting the Lotus Sutra and chanting Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, the ray of light from the Daimoku reaches all the way to the hell of incessant suffering and makes it possible for them to attain Buddhahood then and there. This is the origin of the prayers for transference of merit for the deceased. This is why you have the capacity to determine Buddhahood for your parents. You attain Buddhahood and your parents are locked in. Okay, your attainment of Buddhahood is the same thing as the attainment of Buddhahood for your parents. Okay, that will be expressed in your life and at the end of theirs. Even if persons, listen to this, it's very significant. You've already read this before, but I'm sure you haven't read it since. Even if persons who had no faith in the Lotus Sutra have fallen into the hell of incessant suffering, as practitioners of the Lotus Sutra, their filial offspring, you as children, may offer them the ray of light from the Daimoku in the same manner that Shakyamuni reached Devadatta. Mm-hmm. Do you understand? You're guaranteed that empowerment. Okay? How could this principle of the Daimoku enabling one to attain Buddhahood be any different than it is in the case of persons who have faith in the sutra? Okay, so he's saying, even if we can do it for the people that have faith in the sutra, the inherent Buddhahood of their life isn't because of their faith in the sutra. That's the manifestation of their original state. Their original state is Buddhahood because of the attainment of the original teacher. Do you understand? So even if they didn't believe, you as their filial offspring can help them achieve that. Therefore, Nichiren is led. In other words, this is my teaching. This is my perception. You won't find this somewhere else. Therefore, Nichiren is led to conclude. He's saying this and using himself as in a third person sense. Therefore, Nichiren is led to conclude that this passage on the ray of light reaching downward as far as the Avicii hell is intended to depict the way in which the Buddha, emitting a ray of life, makes it possible for Devadatta to attain Buddhahood. All right, and there is no difference between you and Shakyamuni. Okay, point 6. The words "why" from the white tuft between the eyebrows of our leader and teacher. The commentary, Words and Phrases, Volume 3, says, now this would be Tentai then, right? Therefore, since he preaches the law, enters into samadhi, and is able to lead others, he has already been designated a leader and teacher. The record of the orally transmitted teaching says, here the words leader and teacher refers to Shakyamuni Buddha. Preaching the law refers to the Immeasurable Meaning Sutra, and entering into samadhi refers to the samadhi of the origin of original meanings. You understand? You already remembers from reading the original meaning, Immeasurable Meaning Sutra. That's how that goes down, right? He starts out. He's already in a deep samadhi, and then he comes out and he says everything is the same, everything is equal. You know, it's known by many names. It's all the same. He never really qualifies what the hell specifically he's talking about, but he starts to lay the foundation for the truth of the Lotus Sutra, right? All right, so he says, I love this. Generally speaking, there are two types of leaders and teachers. Bad leaders and teachers, and good leaders and good teachers. Examples of bad leaders and teachers are Honen, Kobo, Jikaku, and Shisho. Nimbutsu, Nimbutsu, true word, right? Examples of good teachers, good leaders and teachers are Tentai and Dingyo. Lotus School. Now that we have entered the latter day of the law, Nichiren and his followers act as good leaders and teachers. Period. The law they preach is Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, and the samadhi they enter is the firmly fixed state of mind of one who accepts and upholds the Lotus Sutra. So what's that say? And the samadhi they enter is the firmly fixed state of mind of one Mugiwashi, doubt-free faith. The samadhi they enter is the firmly fixed state of mind of one who accepts and upholds the Lotus Sutra. The same as saying is the state of mind of one who has doubt-free faith, that practices with doubt-free faith. You should pay special attention to the word able, Nichiren says. You should pay special attention to the word able in the statement, he is able to lead others, and consider its meaning. So when he says that, he's saying, Shantai Moko about this, think about this. You know, don't take for granted that it's just an easy couple words that are being used to join things together. It's very significant. What would able be? You have to understand the teaching, don't you? Yep. To be a teacher of the law. You can't be a teacher of the law and not know anything. All right? You have to be able to guide and direct people to the doctrine that substantiates what you're verbalizing and what you're actualizing as a Buddha. Correct? Yes. Okay, so that's able. Hang on. He says, you should pay special attention to the word able in the statement, he is able to lead others, and consider its meaning. The passage in the Emerging from the Earth chapter that reads, foremost leaders and guiding teachers. Talking about who? The bodhisattvas of the earth. That the people at the ceremony have never seen the likes of such people. They're so Buddha-like. They're so imminent with the 32 features. They're so golden. They're so noble. They're like freaking everybody out. Where did people like this come from that practice this law? Okay? It's not everybody else like at the assembly, common seekers. These are leaders. These are foremost among men people. Okay? He says, the passage in the Emerging from the Earth chapter that reads foremost leaders and guiding teachers refers to the same type of persons. Us. You. It means, in effect, those persons who preach the law to all people of the country in Japan in order to lead them. Okay? Those followers of Nichiren, practicing the correct teaching, taught from correct teachers with the correct object of devotion. We'll get into that in a minute. Point 7, this is the one that I needed to read the first two to get to. The commentary, Words and Phrases, Volume 3, Tentai says, heavenly drums sounded of themselves is symbolic of one who takes it upon oneself to preach without being asked. That's exactly what I'm doing, right? Nobody asked me to do this. You guys have all been nice enough to listen to me, but I'm preaching without being asked, frankly. Okay? He says, the record of the orally transmitted teaching says, this passage praises the way in which the auspicious omens appearing in this land and other lands are all the same. One who takes it upon oneself to preach without being asked refers to the fact that Shakyamuni thus come one has taken it upon himself to preach the Lotus Sutra of the wonderful law without being asked. Now, Nichiren and his followers also take it on themselves to preach without being asked. When they declare that the Nimbutsu leads to the hell of incessant suffering, that Zen is the teaching of the heavenly devil, that true word will ruin the nation, and that precepts is traitorous, they are taking it upon themselves to preach without being asked. Because they do so, the three types of powerful enemies have appeared on the scene. The heavenly drums are Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. Of themselves means they are unhindered by any obstacles. These foremost teachers. Do you understand? Sounded refers to the sound of the chanting of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. In the same sense, we may say that when all living beings freely send forth their words and voices, this is the case of taking it upon themselves to preach without being asked. Taking it upon themselves to preach, we may say, refers even to the voices and cries of the wrongdoers being punished by the wardens of hell, to the famished cries of the hungry spirits, or to the voices of all living beings, as moment by moment they are beset by the three poisons, greed, anger, and foolishness. All these voices, in essence, are Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. There's no separation between the good stuff and the bad stuff. Nam-myoho Renge-kyo includes everything. The heavenly drums are the 5 characters of Myoho Renge-kyo, and you should always understand that, because that will be the first mistake most people will make. They will want to be, out of the goodness of their mind, they will want to start categorizing good is Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, bad is something outside of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. This is an incorrect understanding of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. There is no bad outside of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. There is nothing outside of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. Nichiren's saying it right here clearly. This isn't my opinion. This isn't Daisaku Ikeda's opinion. This is the orally transmitted teaching. Okay? The truth that was too strong for just anybody to hear. Only people of faith can be taught this correct teaching. All right? So he says again, in another sense, we may say that when all living beings freely send forth their voices, their words and voices, this is the case of taking it upon themselves to preach without being asked. Taking it upon themselves to preach, we may say, refers even to the voices and cries of the wrongdoers being punished by the wardens of hell, to the famished cries of the hungry spirits, or to the voices of all living beings, as moment by moment they are beset by the 3 poisons, greed, anger, and foolishness. All these voices in essence are Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. The heavenly drums are the 5 characters of Myoho Renge-kyo, the essential teaching and the theoretical teaching. Heavenly refers to the highest principle, which is comparable to heaven. Take it upon oneself to preach refers to the preaching of the law by the Buddha of limitless joy. The Nam-myoho Renge-kyo thus come one, which we become natural extensions of when we assume our true identities as bodhisattvas of the earth. Do you understand? With no separation. On words and phrases, which is Myolo, right? On the words and phrases, Volume 3 says, when words and phrases. So Myolo saying when Tentai states that this is symbolic of one who takes it upon oneself to preach without being asked. It refers to the opening of the Expedient Means chapter where the Buddha arises from his samadhi and addresses Shariputra, delivering praise now in extended language, prose, and now in abbreviated form, verse. He also uses the auspicious omens of this land and other lands, as well as things indescribable in words and indescribable. Sometimes he speaks of the reality, sometimes of the wisdom to understand it. These, reality and wisdom, are the root and foundation of the entire sutra. Everybody understands that, right? Okay? The crux of the 5 periods of teaching, in other words, the basis of it. Therefore, this matter must not be approached lightly. You must understand this correctly, or else you'll be practicing something that you can't give to other people and have them gain benefit. All right? What in the passage of commentary is called the root and foundation of the entire sutra, the crux of the 5 periods of preaching? This is Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. So again, he was quoting Myolo, talking about Tentai, and he's saying what they're talking about is really nothing more than Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. So everybody understand? When you come to situations where this all takes me back these last 2 weeks to that whole big conversation with oh my God, I just went brain dead. Never mind, I'll think of it later. I'll go ahead and start reading. We're on page, I'm going to start reading from the 3 pronouncements of the Treasure Tower chapter on page 79. I'll think of it probably as we end the meeting. Okay. In the opening of the eyes, as I mentioned earlier, far right column, page 79. We were going to reread this so we're not going into the three pronouncements without anything in advance. Okay? It's been 3 weeks ago. 2 weeks. In the opening of the eyes, as I mentioned earlier, Nichiren cites the sutra passages containing the 3 pronouncements of the Treasure Tower chapter. Okay, right? In the first pronouncement, Shakyamuni declares his wish to entrust the Lotus Sutra to those who, pardon me, and this is where I was going to read you the actual dictionary, pardon me.
The 3 pronouncement of the Treasure Tower chapter.
Here we go. Okay, 3 pronouncements. Let me read you the dictionary definition first. Also, 3 pronouncements of the Buddha. Exhortations by Shakyamuni Buddha in the Treasure Tower, 11th chapter of the Lotus Sutra. Urging the assembly 3 times to propagate the Lotus Sutra after his death. So we're going to go over each one of those 3, but that's the 3 pronouncements, okay? It comes from, again, the Treasure Tower chapter, right? And what does the Treasure Tower chapter precede? Emerging from the earth, right? Yeah. So this is when he's talking to everybody else and telling them to spread the sutra, and they're all going cool, and that's when, boom, the bodhisattvas of the earth start streaming out, and Manjushri is going like, who are these guys? I never saw these guys. I've been with you every minute. Where the hell did they come from? Right? So, he says, these 3 pronouncements and the 2 admonitions of the Devadatta chapter, which we'll get into next chapter, okay, those are the 5 proclamations of the Buddha. These 3 pronouncements and the 2 admonitions in the Devadatta chapter are collectively called the 5 proclamations of the Buddha. with the first pronouncement, the Buddha voices his desire to transmit the sutra to someone, to someone. The Treasure Tower chapter reads, in a loud voice, Shakyamuni addressed all 4 kinds of believers, saying, who is capable of broadly preaching the Lotus Sutra of the wonderful law in this Sahe world? In this Sahe world, not in a Buddha land, in this Sahe world. Right? Now is the time to do so, for before long the thus come one will enter nirvana. Now is the time for you to do it, because soon I'm going to be gone. The Buddha wishes to entrust this Lotus Sutra of the wonderful law to someone so that it may be preserved. So his whole thing is like, somebody take this from me so that it's there for the future, because I'm going to be leaving. All right? In the second pronouncement, the Buddha expresses his desire to perpetuate the law for all eternity. Not enough just to hand it off. I want this to go on forever. This is the actual teaching that I made my advent to bring forth. The Treasure Tower chapter reads, at that time the world honored one, wishing to state his meaning once more, spoke in verse form, saying, through this expedient means, they make certain that the law will long endure. So I say to the great assembly, after I have passed into extinction, who can guard and uphold, read and recite this sutra? Now in the presence of the Buddha, let him come forward and speak his vow. Don't forget, this is Treasure Tower. Emerging from the earth is coming. So he's saying who? He's really speaking to the fact that the who is going to be appearing. All right? In the third pronouncement, the Buddha expounds the difficulty of propagating the Sutta after his death by employing the teaching of the 6 difficult and 9 easy acts, which we started to go into at the beginning of this chapter, right? This pronouncement reads in part, the thus come one many treasures, I myself, and these emanation Buddhas who have gathered here, surely know this is our aim. All you good men, each of you must consider carefully. Each of you must consider carefully. This is a difficult matter. What I'm about to say is so important for you to keep after until you get it. You cannot take it lightly. It's not something for me to just say and for you to go, that sounded cool. You must be able to perceive it and teach it. All right? It is proper that you should make a great vow. It's that important. You can preach this sutra. That will be difficult indeed. All you good men, after I have entered extinction, who can accept and uphold, read and recite this sutra? Now in the presence of me, now in the presence of the Buddha, let him come forward and speak his vow. Okay? And the vow will be, I will uphold the law in the latter day. What's the law? The law, the law, the law, the law, the law. He never says what the law is. He just says it's the law. And it will be made clear in the 5th half millennium after his death, in the 5th 500-year period. That's when he's talking about, because he's already said in the Lotus Sutra that at the beginning of the latter day, my 28th chapter teaching isn't going to have the ability, because it will become so convoluted and twisted by interpretations of bad teachers, okay, that misunderstandings will occur that will have the opposite effect on the people that I'm trying to save. That's what those 4 dictums are all about.
Yeah.
Do you understand? Yeah. Okay, so now you've read from the Sutra, the pronouncements, okay? Let me go back to page 79, okay. Chapter 2, or paragraph 2 on this right side. In the first pronouncement, Shakyamuni declares his wish to entrust the Lotus Sutra to those who will spread it in the strife-filled Sahe world after his passing. And he exhorts the bodhisattvas present to come forward and vow to carry out this mission. In fact, the entire ceremony in the air, which begins in the Treasure Tower chapter and ends in the Entrustment chapter, is a ceremony to entrust the bodhisattvas of the earth with the mission of propagating the Lotus Sutra, right? That's what I just said. Everybody understood that, right? Okay? In the second pronouncement, Shakyamuni indicates that the reason all Buddhas of the 10 directions, that is to say throughout the universe, all Buddhas ever, anywhere, have gathered at the assembly of the Lotus Sutra in the Sahe world. The reason that they've done that is to make certain that the law will long endure. They're all there to back it up as the truth, which is the purpose of Shakyamuni's whole lifetime of teaching. Do you understand? They're there to give credence to this last teaching of the perfect teaching of the Lotus Nirvana. All right? And he urges those present to openly state their vow to propagate the sutra after his passing. In other words, the perpetuation of the law in this troubled world is the will of all Buddhas throughout the universe. That in itself underscores just how important it is that the law endures. Now, why is this the goal? Why is this the will of all the Buddhas throughout the universe? Why is that the will? In other words, perpetuation of the law in this troubled world is the will of all Buddhas throughout the universe. That in itself underscores just how important it is that the law endures. Why is it that all the Buddhas throughout the universe have the desire for the law to long endure and to be preached in the Sahe world? It's a very simple answer. Because that's how they all attain Buddhahood. All Buddhas want to make everyone equal to themselves. They don't attain Buddhahood for the sake of being the Buddha. They attain Buddhahood for the sake of the manifestation of the life state that all people can attain. It's to lead them. It's to, what are those, to kind of like, what's the word that he uses? To get them to come in, to get them to embrace. It's the four things that all Buddhas do. Okay, I can't think of it right now. But you understand? Anything to get people to embrace the law that allows them to become Buddhas themselves. This is the point. All right? So that's why all the Buddhas throughout the universe all desire this, because they all became enlightened through Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. What are we talking about here? We're actually talking about Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. Right? He's saying, who will uphold the law after my passing in the evil age? What is the evil age? The latter day of the law. What law could he only be talking about then? Only Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. Okay? That's the law that all the Buddhas through the three existences of past, present, and future, throughout the 10 directions. Okay? It's Nam-myoho Renge-kyo that they became Buddhas by. All right? The struggles of the Buddha who awoke to this law of universal enlightenment and seeks to share it with others would all come to naught if living beings in this troubled world could not attain Buddhahood. In the third pronouncement, Shakyamuni sets forth the 6 difficult and 9 easy acts, the 6 difficult and the 9 easy acts, explaining how difficult it would be to propagate the sutra in the age after his passage. He commands the bodhisattvas to arouse a great aspiration and proclaim their vow to undertake this arduous challenge. Okay? Shakyamuni's elevation of the relative merit of the sutras. Of these 3 pronouncements, Nichiren devotes the greatest discussion to the teaching of the 6 difficult and 9 easy acts, focusing on this teaching as a means for judging the relative merits of the different sutras. He goes on to consider the various sutras in the light of whether they fall into the category of the 6 difficult acts, a teaching that should be propagated after the Buddha's passing, or the category of the 9 easy acts, an inferior teaching. All right? Everybody's with me, right? Mm-hmm. Okay? In short, the reason Shakyamuni expounds the 6 difficult and 9 easy acts and urges the bodhisattvas to propagate the Lotus Sutra after his demise is that this sutra constitutes the foremost teaching in that it assures enlightenment for all people of the evil age to come. As Nichiren writes in the first part of the opening of the eyes, the doctrine of the true mutual possession of the 10 worlds and the true 3,000 realms in a single moment of life. What does that mean? What's he talking about? When he says the doctrine of, what doctrine is he speaking of? What? No, actual Ichinen Sanzen. Anytime he says true, and he says 3,000 mutual possession, because mutual possession of the 10 worlds is part of Ichinen Sanzen, right? That's the Buddhahood exists in all 10 worlds. That's the thing that allows you to be Buddha exactly as you are, no matter where you are, no matter who you are, right?
Right.
So he's saying the doctrine of the true mutual possession of the 10 worlds. Remember, he's already differentiated that the Ichinen Sanzen of the expedient means chapter, the second, Tentai's 3,000 realms is different from his 3,000 realms. He differentiates that his 3,000 realms in a momentary state of existence is the true 3,000 realms. Okay? So when he's talking about true mutual possession or true 3,000 realms, he's talking about true actual Ichinen Sanzen. It's the faith that allows you to be the Buddha without being any different than who you are. Okay, it's the Buddhahood that we all are engaged in revealing.
Right.
All right? So he says, as Nichiren writes in the first part of the opening of the eyes, the doctrine of actual Ichinen Sanzen, the essential teaching for ordinary people to attain Buddhahood. Do you understand when I just now inserted it that way? The essential teaching for ordinary people to attain Buddhahood is actual Ichinen Sanzen. To perceive and understand that you are the Buddha exactly as you are. To not be looking at everything outside of yourself. Help me, please. To manifest the innate state and power of your life in its true and unadulterated state. Buddha, right, is hidden, he says, in the depths of the lifespan chapter of the Lotus Sutra. What's he saying is, it's Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. Okay? That's what's hidden in the depths of the Lotus Sutra, right? The Gohonzon.
Yeah.
Is hidden, okay? That's why all these guys are going the Lotus Sutra, propagating it in the fifth 500 year period. Because Nam-myoho Renge-kyo is there, but they can't say Nam-myoho Renge-kyo is there because the Buddhism of the sowing hasn't made its advent yet, right? We're still at the ceremony in the air, right? They can only talk about the law, the law, the law. The law hasn't been revealed as what it actually is yet. It's not time for it to be revealed for what it actually is yet. Do you all understand?
Yeah.
This all makes sense, right? All right. So, that is why the Lotus Sutra surpasses all other teachings, because Nam-myoho Renge-kyo is contained in its depths. The Gohonzon is contained in its depths. All Buddha's Buddhahood is contained in its depths. In the outstanding principles of the Lotus Sutra, the great teacher Dengyo, founder of the Japanese Tendai school of Buddhism, writes with regard to the significance of the 6 difficult and 9 easy acts, Shakyamuni taught that the shallow is easy to embrace, but the profound is difficult. To discard the shallow and seek the profound is the way of a person of courage. Now, how many times have you heard Nichiren quote Dengyo saying that? That is in so many goshos. Yeah, it says here it's from the Selection of Time. But that's in a lot of goshos. Especially this, to discard the shallow and seek the profound is the way of a person of courage. He's constantly saying that. Be the person of courage. Discard the shallow. Seek the profound. To seek the shallow is easy. To seek the profound is difficult. To seek the shallow is incorrect. Won't get you anywhere. Won't get you to the truth. To seek the profound is difficult, but you will find the truth there. In other words, Shakyamuni set forth the 6 difficult and 9 easy acts to teach that spreading a shallow teaching is easy, while propagating a profound teaching is difficult. Here we have Shakyamuni's own evaluation. Shakyamuni's the one that said that. That's why Nichiren could make all these distinctions and cop these attitudes about no. Because Shakyamuni had actually already laid this down very clearly in the sutras, or they had been recorded as Shakyamuni's declaration very clearly. Here we have Shakyamuni's own evaluation of the relative merits of the various sutras, a comparative classification based on which the Lotus Sutra is deemed profound and all other sutras shallow. Hence, Dengyo writes, Shakyamuni taught that the shallow is easy to embrace, but the profound is difficult. The various other sutras are easy to believe and easy to understand because the Buddha expounded them according to the capacity of beings of the 9 worlds. Do you understand? A method known as preaching in accordance with the minds of others. Because what are those teachings? Expedient means. They are a vehicle, a means to achieve a...
The venue.
Yeah. Okay. The Lotus Sutra is difficult to believe and difficult to understand because the Buddha directly revealed his own enlightenment. In other words, he employed preaching in accordance with his own mind. That's what separates the Lotus and Nirvana. That's what makes them the perfect teaching. Okay? Thus, Dingyo continues to discard the shallow and seek the profound is the way of a person of courage. These are important words. I'll say it again. These are important words because what's contained within them? Without me reading anything else. The fundamental challenge of your faith throughout the course of your existence and life is defined right there. It's going to be difficult. It will be fraught with obstacles. Okay? These are important words. By setting forth the 6 difficult and 9 easy acts and urging those gathered to take up the mission of propagating after his passing, Shakyamuni indicates his wish that his followers discard shallow teachings and spread the profound teaching of the Lotus Sutra. Hence, here, a person of courage means a trainer of people. That's what a teacher of the law is, a trainer of people. Do you understand? Right. Here, a person of courage who discards the shallow and seeks the profound, understand that's what makes them a person of courage. All right? They are better described as trainers of people. What is the trainer of people? He says it right there. The Buddha, actual Ichinen Sanzen. Here, a person of courage means actual Ichinen Sanzen, attainment of the way, Buddhahood in your present form. This is the whole thing. It can't be theoretical. If all you can do is lead people to theoretical realities, then that reality is not real.
Right.
Okay? Here, a person of courage means a trainer of people, the Buddha. While the way of a person of courage means the Buddha's will. Your will is the same as all Buddhas, to make everyone equal to yourself. Widespread propagation of the law that allowed you to be the Buddha. Understand? With regard to the propagation of his teachings after his death, the Buddha's will is that people should reject the shallow teachings, which are easy to believe and understand, and instead adhere to the profound teaching of the Lotus Sutra, which is difficult to believe and understand. Shakyamuni himself established that the Lotus Sutra is his paramount teaching. Therefore, bodhisattvas who make the Buddha's intent their own will abide by this evaluation after his passing, because he made it, that evaluation, discarding all other sutras because he said to, and upholding and spreading this one supreme teaching because that is what he instructed us. Ignorance of the correct object of comparison, page 81. How did all these other schools get it so wrong then? Okay? After quoting the sutra passages containing the 3 pronouncements, Nichiren writes, the meaning of these passages from the sutra is right before our eyes. As he suggests, the Buddha's intent in making these pronouncements is quite clear and unmistakable as the sun shining in the sky. Okay, that's been a part of the 28 chapter translation from Kumarajiva into Mandarin from day one. But people with strong attachments or biases cannot see even something as obvious as the sun. It is if they are blindfolded. The Daishonin then highlights the distorted views of the Lotus Sutra held by the founders of the flower garland, Dharma characteristics, 3 treatises, and true word schools. These men formulated some of the main comparative classifications of the sutras that existed in Nichiren's day. Their classification, Honen's classification, in Nimbutsu chosen above all, that to abandon, to discard, to ignore the Lotus Sutra is why Nichiren says in the 4 dictums, that will lead to the hell of incessant suffering. Do you understand?
Yes.
Is not so much anything other than the pronouncements of these incorrect teachers that created these distortions as hubris. Do you understand? To the correct teaching. Why did the founders of these schools classify the sutras erroneously? Nichiren says it was because they did not know the right object or focus of comparison. The sutras of these various schools each claimed they were foremost among all teachings, but this could not be so because their claims of supremacy were only based on a limited framework. They were not based on the entire span of teaching. They didn't include the declarations of the Lotus Sutra about the law and the latter day. Do you understand? All right. Limited framework, that's what he's talking about. They're based on provisional sutras, which don't contain the truth of the Buddha's, according to the Buddha's understanding. Do you understand? All those sutras have been taught and preached based on the capacity of the listener, of the person being taught. Whereas the Lotus and Nirvana are taught on the basis of the Buddha's own capacity. Do you understand? And you must achieve that capacity to perceive them correctly. The sutras of these various schools each claimed they were foremost among all teachings, but this could not have been so because their claims of supremacy were only based upon a limited framework. In contrast, as indicated in the Teacher of the Law, the 10th chapter, with Shakyamuni's declaration about the sutras I have preached, now preach, and will preach, the Lotus Sutra is the highest among the teachings he has expounded. And I went back and I reread the Teacher of the Law chapter. It's so filled with them, it couldn't be more clear. I mean, it's like, almost the whole chapter is in yellow. That's why I didn't pull it out to read it to you. This is no mistaking about what he's saying here. The Teacher of the Law chapter clearly explains that among all his lifetime teachings, the Lotus Sutra is the most difficult to believe and understand. And it's that exactly. Precisely because it is the profoundest and most difficult teaching to accept and comprehend, Shakyamuni sets forth the 6 difficult and 9 easy acts. And so what does he do? He says, look, I know what I'm about to say. What I'm saying right now is blowing your mind. And so I have to tell you, this is the most difficult thing to understand that I've ever said before. And therefore, really, the only way you can gain entrance to the wisdom to perceive this correctly is through faith. Because you've got to start from faith. Because this is the Buddha's wisdom. You don't have Buddha wisdom yet. Only through faith can you attain that wisdom by believing the teaching until you have the capacity to perceive it. Do you understand it? As the truth, rather than just faith. It all makes sense. You can teach it. Do you understand?
Yeah.
All right, so let me read that again. In contrast, as indicated in the Teacher of the Law, the 10th chapter, with Shakyamuni's declaration about the sutras I have preached, will now preach, and will preach, the Lotus Sutra is the highest among the teachings he has expounded. The Teacher of the Law chapter clearly explains that among all his lifetime teachings, the Lotus Sutra is the most difficult to believe and understand, precisely because it is the profoundest and most difficult teaching to accept and comprehend. Shakyamuni sets forth the 6 difficult and 9 easy acts. The founders of the various other Buddhist schools lost sight of this and instead relied on passages in other sutras that claimed preeminence. As a result, they devised systems of classification counter to the Buddha's intent. And the later priests of these schools remained confused about the relative merits of the various sutras and misinterpreted the principles found in them. The Daishonin severely refutes their mistakes, saying, unless one can perceive the relative profundity of the various writings, one cannot judge the worth of the principles they reveal. Which is why he wrote down and sustained his attack in the form of the 4 maxims, the 4 dictums. That's exactly what he's saying. He's saying, this is what those are good for. Nimbutsu leads to the hell of suffering. Zen is the work of the heavenly devil. True word will lead the nation to ruin. Precepts is the traitor to the nation. He said this over and over and over again. That's what he's saying. He's saying that's how you judge them. He gave the judgment for the people, for his followers to be able to perceive. Don't screw around. That's what the 10th chapter's already said. Leave that shit behind. That was then. This is now. Okay? In other words, blind to the 6 difficult and 9 easy acts that Shakyamuni personally clarified, and to his statement about the sutras I have preached, now preach, and will preach, these people failed to grasp the true relative merits of the various sutras. Naturally, this resulted in confusion about the depth of the teachings contained in those sutras. The richest person in all of present-day Japan. How are we doing on time?
9.
I'm going to finish this. The richest person in all of present-day Japan. Put in. I remember it was. Remind me, it was about Waverly. What Waverly said. After we're done, we turn off the cameras. Put another way, by understanding the 6 difficult and 9 easy acts, one can judge the merits of the various sutras, as well as establish which teachings are most profound. Everybody's clear on that, right? Okay? That is Nichiren Daishonen's position. Okay? Accordingly, he says that his own judgment of the sutras far surpasses that of the top dude of the Flower Garland School, the top dude of the Three Treatises School, the top dude of the Dharma Characteristics School, and Kobo of the True Words School, right? So he takes the 4 dictums, he takes the 4 boom, right? To follow the teachings of to follow the teaching of the 6 difficult and 9 easy acts, and apprehend, which means to understand which teachings are shallow and which are profound, is to dedicate one's life to upholding and propagating the Lotus Sutra as described in the 6 difficult and 9 easy acts. Do you understand what I just said? Okay? So you don't have to wonder or worry about, will I really get to the point where I can run through fire with a bunch of hay on my back and not get burned? Do you remember what the 6 difficult acts are? They're all impossibilities. Okay? To flick Mount Sumeru away from my finger. Okay? We don't have to worry about those, because those are, again, there to demonstrate. They're allegorical. They're demonstrations of this. What the Daishonin just said here is that, pardon me.
When they are not
Yeah,
by actual practice, they become more intellectual beings.
where did I just read it though?
The second paragraph.
Okay. To follow the teachings of the 6 difficult and 9 easy acts, and to apprehend which teachings are shallow and which are profound, is to dedicate one's life to upholding and propagating the Lotus Sutra as described. Okay, do you understand?
Yes.
So, to follow the teachings without free faith and to never give up is the same as the 6 difficult acts. Achieving the 6 difficult acts. That's what that's saying. Do you understand? All right. So, when doctrinal comparisons of the teachings are not accompanied by actual practice, they become mere intellectual gains. Because actual practice, what does he mean by actual practice? He's talking about actual Ichinen Senzen. The achievement of Buddhahood in your present form. That's what the goal of practicing Nichiren Buddhism is. It's the objective. It's what you're guaranteed in this lifetime, even if it's the last moment of your life. All right? The Daishonin declares that because without begrudging his life, he has struggled in exact accord with the spirit of the Lotus Sutra, his name will surely be handed down in ages to come. Based on this immense state of life, he writes, I, Nichiren, am the richest man in all of present-day Japan. Everybody understands? Not talking about money, he's talking about the wisdom to perceive the truth. There is no greater spiritual wealth than to read with one's life, and what does read with one's life mean? What does that phrase what are they expressing in that? It means to put into action. Nothing more than that. Okay? That's how we express with our lives. It's by what we do. It's not what we say. It's not what we talk about. It's the actions that we take to accomplish. All right? To put into action the Lotus Sutra, which is the highest teaching. There is no greater spiritual wealth than to read with one's life, which we're all capable of doing, to put into action the Lotus Sutra, which is the highest teaching. Through our practice of Nichiren Buddhism, we of the SGI also come to savor this vast state of life. How remarkable it is that Nichiren, although exiled on Sado Island, as he was when he wrote this, can declare himself the richest person in all Japan. In other letters written while on Sato, also, by the way, he hasn't been pardoned yet, has he, while he's writing this? So regardless of his circumstance, all right? In other letters written while on Sato, he also exclaims, although we may be exiles, we have cause to be joyful in both body and mind. Reply to Sarinbo. And I feel immeasurable delight even though I am now in exile from the true aspect of all phenomena. Certainly no authority or persecution could suppress or contain his immense state of life. Viewed from the state of Buddhahood, not even the most hellish circumstances could pose a restraint. This was his spirit. This is the spirit of President Makaguchi. This was the spirit of President Toda. This is the spirit inherited by President Ikeda that he's trying to convey to us as mentor and disciple. Selfless practice carried out without begrudging one's life is the key to achieving such a lofty, unheralded state of being. Putting nothing in front of your mission as a bodhisattva of the earth. It's not a matter of convenience. It's your most important thing. Whenever there's a decision, what I got to do as a bodhisattva of the earth, anything else. This one wins out every time. This is correct. All right? Achieving such a lofty, unhindered state of life, as Nichiren indicates when he writes, I have dedicated my life to the Lotus Sutra, and my name will be handed down in ages to come. By devoting ourselves to the Lotus Sutra, we can tap Myoho Rengekyo from within and bring it to bloom in our lives. The Daishonin compares one who lives based on the 6 difficult and 9 easy acts to being the Lord of the great ocean. He compares one who lives based on the 6 difficult and 9 easy acts. What did I already clarify that means? One who bases their life on actual Ichen and Sanzen. The pursuit of actual Ichen and Sanzen can be likened to the Lord of the great ocean and the king of Mount Sumeru. He says that just as the Lord of the great ocean is obeyed by the gods of the various rivers and the king of Mount Sumeru is served by the gods of the various other mountains, one who internalizes the teaching of the 6 difficult and 9 easy acts according to Buddhism reigns supreme. You are the Buddha. Your prayers will be answered. Period. That sort of person can correctly discern Buddhism's highest teachings or ultimate truth because he or she embodies the mystic law. They are entities of the mystic law. They are genuine bodhisattvas of the earth. Their lives are based on action toward the law and the widespread propagation. Do you understand? There's a difference here. There's something that makes it so. It's not just I joined the club and now I get to share in the title. It's based on what you do. That sort of person can correctly discern Buddhism's highest teaching or ultimate truth because he or she embodies the mystic law, the teaching implicit in the depths of the lifespan chapter. They embody the Gohonzon. Do you understand? Yes. And the foundation of all the sutras expounded by Shakyamuni, which is Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, and strive to spread it widely, which is widespread propagation. That's what a Buddha does in the latter day, right? Expressed in the concrete form of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. Everybody with me on all that stuff I stuck in there? Yeah. Do you understand what I was saying to clarify it? All right. Last part. A person of courage seeks the profound. Let us return once more to Dengyo's passage. To discard the shallow and seek the profound is the way of a person of courage. To seek the profound refers to our challenge to bravely stand as protagonists of Kosen Rufu. You understand what that means, right? Mm-hmm. Never give up. We of the SGI have steadfastly taken on this most difficult challenge in the present age. From the pioneering days of our movement, despite being showered with slander, criticism, and abuse. So don't let that ever detour you. That's been there since day one. Our members have summoned up their courage and told others about the greatness of Nichiren's teachings and about our noble cause, all out of the desire to help others become happy. In these compassionless and self-centered times where people are not only concerned about themselves and give little thought to others, we of the SGI have chanted for the happiness of our friends, prayed for the prosperity of our local communities and society, and wholeheartedly exerted ourselves for Kosen Rufu. In this way, day after day, with courage and conviction, we have nobly sought to propagate the Lotus Sutra widely in an evil age, teach it to even one person, and inquire about its meaning, all of which are described among the 6 difficult acts. You got it? This intrepid spirit to fight for Kosen Rufu is itself the way of a person of courage and becomes the heart of the Buddha. Because when you do that, you are the Buddha. We have succeeded in opening an unprecedented age of worldwide Kosen Rufu thanks to our members' valiant struggles to resonate with the Buddha spirit. Viewed in terms of human life, shallow means inertia. What does inertia mean?
Not moving.
Not moving. Idleness and cowardice. Bravely defeating such inner weakness and seeking deep conviction and profound human greatness is the way of a person of courage. To seek the shallow or the profound, this inner battle takes place in our hearts and many times each day. Life, too, is a struggle. We need to defeat our weaknesses and courageously stand up based on faith, with the resolve to continue growing in our lives, to keep moving forward, and to be victorious in the challenges we encounter. When we live with such depth and meaning, we can become true winners in life. That is the purpose of our daily practice of faith and SGI activities. And we'll begin with Chapter 9 next week. Thank you.
Thank you.